All right, whenever you're ready, you got this.
So this is Immigrants in the U.S. and it's by me. So according to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the United States is home to more immigrants than any other nation in the world, and that number is 44 million. The United States, immigration has been extremely beneficial to the United States as it has increased our workforce of skilled workers and has fueled the economy, and it's also a source of greater diversity. Immigrants, they come into the United States in search of a new start, new jobs, and the American dream. However, immigrants, they face many hardships while they do so. Over here is a picture of a migrant mother. She is wearing dirty, battered clothes, and she looks tired, and she has 3 children resting on her. However, notice that she is still able to support the weight of the children, and she is not crumpling under their weight. Furthermore, she has a determined expression on her face, and this mimics the resilience in immigrants, as despite all these hardships, they still overcome it, and they still become successful in America. So now on to the many problems that immigrants face in the United States. The first problem is financial issues. Many immigrants, they aren't familiar with the U.S. banking system, and as a result, they are unbanked. This means that they do not have a bank account of any kind, and they don't have any credit cards. And according to the Library of the University of Minnesota, 57% of Mexican immigrants and 35% of Ecuadorian immigrants, they are unbanked. And most immigrants, they end up using cash for all financial purposes, for like paying bills, utilities. And the problem with this is they aren't really able to save money. It's whatever money they get, it's going directly into affording their lifestyle. And furthermore, as a result of just spending cash, they can't develop a credit score, which they need in order to purchase loans and cars, the loans for like cars, further education, businesses, and as a result, they aren't able to get far, like advance their lives in society, as they aren't able to make future investments. So another issue is the language barriers, and the problem is that many immigrants, they don't speak English. So as a result, it can cause issues in the healthcare industry for them, and it can also cause discrimination and bullying. So on to the healthcare industry. So immigrants, they are less likely to receive care and the appropriate resources that they need during like emergency health situations. And in fact, they're at a higher risk of suffering errors in diagnostics and treatment. And this can lead for them needing to have additional diagnostics tests. And furthermore, there might be a misinterpretation of their symptoms. So according to the National Library of Medicine, people who have language barriers, they are more likely to receive not enough anesthesia when they're undergoing surgical processes. And this basically shows the disconnect between the healthcare industry and immigrants, as because immigrants, because of this healthcare barrier, they can't communicate their needs, the healthcare industry can't adequately provide back for them. So another study done by the University of Western Australia states that emergency calls for cardiac arrest took longer for those with language barriers, and once again, it's for the same reasons of this disconnect between the healthcare industry and immigrants because of this language barrier. So another issue that immigrants have as a result of the language barrier is discrimination. This discrimination can take part in various aspects of their life, such as in the workforce, such as parents, and it can also even be children themselves. So immigrants are targets of exploitation, wage theft, and they work in hazardous working conditions. And as mentioned in the dark side of resilience, many people become tolerant to adversity in their jobs because they believe that the problems they face are challenges and not legitimate issues that need to be addressed. And the same is true for immigrants who come to the United States and they work, as they believe, oh, this is the mentality in the US, this is how hard it is to work, and they don't realize that they deserve better working conditions. Furthermore, immigrants who are parents, they have a disconnect with the school education system. They aren't able to properly get involved in their child's lives. So for example, Pons, a mother of 2, her child was beaten in school, and she was brought to the school, and the school had a student translate for her, but the student actually translated the situation incorrectly. And she says, "I didn't know we had rights, and that they couldn't take students out of class to help translate for us, and that they were obliged to get someone on the line to help us. They never told us this." So as mentioned by Olivia, this shows that oftentimes immigrant parents, they are left confused and lost about what's happening in their children's schools as a result of this language barrier. And schools, although they should have accommodations provided by the law to help these parents out, they do not actually have that. So another problem that people face, specifically children, is bullying. So according to a background paper written by the UN Office of the Special Representatives and the Secretary General on Violence Against Children, states that children who are immigrants, they are more likely to face taunts and slurs, derogatory references, physical aggression, social manipulation, and also just ostracization. And this can lead to a variety of effects, specifically mental health issues. So for mental health issues, many of these immigrants, they are coming from places that have caused them unprocessed trauma. They're either fleeing from a famine or in search of like a better or safer condition, or maybe family issues. And all that unprocessed trauma goes unnoticed when they step into this new environment. Furthermore, many times, as mentioned earlier, bullying, like profiling, racial profiling and stuff like that, it can lead to fear, anxiety, isolation, and feelings that one's safety is threatened. Another stress that immigrants face is this loss in a sense of identity. Catherine Pont, a Portuguese immigrant, says, we may feel that we're not accepted here in the US, but in our parents' home, we're also regarded as foreigners or American. So basically, these immigrants, they don't feel like they belong anywhere because they don't associate with the immigrant country they immigrated from, and they don't fully assimilate into American culture either. And these factors, along with social marginalization, intergenerational conflict, PTSD, and psychological disorders, they can increase suicidal idealization. And oftentimes, there's a stigma in immigrant populations that therapy is unnecessary, and as a result, they don't go to therapy either, and they sacrifice their mental wellness. So for all of these problems, we need to address solutions. How can we make immigrants feel safer and better in America? So one solution is community sessions, where immigrants, they can meet up together in public places like schools or community centers, and they can share their experience as immigrants. And this can help immigrants feel less alone, and they can also feel as though there are other people who relate to their experiences. Furthermore, if, as mentioned earlier, they don't know proper English, they can end up learning English by helping each other out. And they can also learn procedures that they are not familiar with, such as how the banking system works, how taxes work, and they can also come together and address common problems they face, and together as a group, they can find resolutions to it. So deficiencies are that it makes immigrants feel less alone, and it also raises awareness about the issues that immigrants face. But the limitations is that it can take time to implement and to find locations, and it would also require money to start these institutions where people can go and meet up together. So the second solution is therapy. As mentioned earlier, many immigrants, they do not get therapy, and it's not about getting them therapy, but raising awareness about therapy to like break that stigma that many of these immigrant families and people face. So this can be done by posting about therapy in public places like schools, restaurants, bathrooms, so people are more inclined to go to therapy. And the efficiency is that it can help reduce mental stress and break away from that previous stigma. But the limitations is that it can't change everyone, as some people's mindsets might not be changed, and also therapy, it mainly focuses on patient-to-patient interactions. It depends on how willing that immigrant is to open up about their experiences and trauma in order to recover. So once again, immigrants, although they face all these problems, they're incredibly resilient, as they have become a major part of America, as they're in various different industries, like the political, they're part of the government, they're lawyers, they're teachers, they're doctors, they're part of the entertainment industry, they start their own businesses. And this shows the resilience that immigrants have, because despite all these problems, they're still able to succeed in America. And by solving these issues, we can facilitate a more smoother transition to America for immigrants and have them feel more welcome. Thank you.
All right, so we have two questions for you. How did you handle the differing perspectives in order to reach a conclusion?
So one thing I noticed is that for most of these topics, there are both a pro side and a con side. So for example, immigrants working, in some places I saw that they are treated unfairly, they face discrimination, as I mentioned here, and then in other places it said that because they're immigrants, they're more likely to get work because people want to find workers who are more willing to work for longer hours. And I found this contrast in perspective, and oftentimes it confused me. So what I did is I went back and I went to different sources to see how it's being addressed, which side is more predominantly argued for, and I also looked at the credibility of the sources to make my decision of how long ago was this made, what website is, or what author is writing this claim. So I basically went back and filtered to determine which side I wanted to choose, and that's how I addressed differing perspectives.
Okay. And then, what might be the real-world implications or consequences of your findings? What are the implications to your community?
So I think that this can definitely raise awareness about the issue that immigrants face, as most people are probably aware of all the bullying and stigma that immigrants face. And as a result, they might try to do something about it, such as building community centers. But the implication is it would take time to pass a law to allow this to happen. It would take time to find locations, time to have enough immigrants feel safe and comfortable to come to these places. And it's going to take, so it would take time, money, and that's one implication. Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Sure. What might be the real-world implications or consequences of your findings? What are the implications to your community?
And I think it would also slightly make people uncomfortable if they didn't realize this, but that being uncomfortable, that's going to basically promote change and help create institutions that will help immigrants. So that's the real world implication. While it makes people uncomfortable, it's eventually going to cause change.
Okay, thank you very much.
Wait, that's just one question, right?
Yes,
did it?
it was one question.
Oh, I just did one? Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
I thought
I-
I had I thought I had to be asked 2 questions.
I did ask you 2 questions.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.